Well, Bungie was back this week with their This Week at Bungie update detailing exotic weapon and armor changes coming to Destiny 2 in Season 19. Plus, we've also got new and returning weapons. So there's a whole load of news to get to, so let's dive in. Well, if you're new around here or find this useful, don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below for all the latest Destiny 2 content and turn on notifications by hitting that bell, and roughly 98% of viewers who watch This Week in Video Games are subscribed. So subscribe today and never miss an update. Well, first of all, we've got Iron Banner, Trials and Nightfall weapons coming next season. So with a new season on the horizon, that means more loot to earn. For those Guardians with a penchant for a different kind of challenge, there's a new array of weapons to earn. So whether you're heading for the Lighthouse or just looking to make old Saladin proud before heading out to run Nightfalls, here is what you can look forward to with the upcoming season. So, Trials of Osiris, first of all, we've got the new weapon, so the Exalted Truth Suros Adaptive Hand Cannon, plus the Adept version, of course, and we also have an Unwavering Duty Suros Adaptive Machine Gun, and another Adept version as well. So, in terms of what is staying in Trials of Osiris, we've got the Whistler's Whim Bow, Forgiveness Sidearm, the Inquisitor, that is a shotgun, of course, we've got the Burden of Guilt Fusion Rifle, and then, as to what is leaving, the Aisha's Embrace and also the Reed's Regret Linear Fusion Rifle. In terms of Iron Banner, here's some new weapons that we're getting. The Dark Decider Auto Rifle and Ganura's Axe Slug Shotgun. I think Ganura's Axe, maybe even Dark Decider, are returning weapons, but let me know in the comments what I've got right and what I've got wrong there. In terms of what is staying, the Allied Demand Sidearm, the Roar of the Bear Rocket Launcher, the Wizened Rebuke Fusion Rifle, Hero's Burden Submachine Gun, the Frontier's Cry Hand Cannon, and the Razor's Edge Sword. But in terms of what's leaving, the Forge's Pledge Pulse Rifle and the Reese Walker Shotgun. And goodbye to the Reese Walker Shotgun. That one is really going to be missed. That is a really, really good shotgun for PvP. Well, next up we've got the Nightfall weapons. So in terms of what is arriving, we've got the Wendigo GL3 Heavy Grenade Launcher. That is coming back. And also the Hung Jury SR4. That is a kinetic scout rifle. That is a fan favourite, and that one is also coming back. In terms of what is leaving, we've got the Silicon Naroma sniper rifle and the duty-bound auto rifle, so goodbye to those two classic D2 weapons. Well, one more thing, we've got a shiny new Season 19 ornament for ritual activities like Gambit, Crucible and Vanguard Strikes. Feast your eyes on the more activity-themed fashion for the upcoming season and marvel at our ability to always come in hot with that clutch green snakeskin look. I think what Bungie is referring to here is the new ritual weapon, and it looks like it's going to be a pulse rifle. But what I'll do, I'll put an image of that on screen right now. Well, Bungie do go into loads of details about weapon changes this week in their This Week at Bungie update. I am only going to go over the exotic weapon and armor changes today, because otherwise the video would go on for about 30 or 40 minutes. But you can check out all the weapon changes and the perk changes on Bungie.net and click on This Week at Bungie, and that was from the 1st of December 2022. Well, let's dive into the exotic weapon and armor changes. So Bungie say, we identified a handful of weapons that we felt needed a substantial change to really hit the level of exoticness that we expect from Destiny 2 exotics. The fundamental perk that can be seen on the damage type switching exotics, so Borealis, Hard Light and Dead Messenger, while functional, felt like it could do more to grant mode some identity based on the selected damage type. So each damage type now grants different weapon stats. So think Elemental Capacitor if that perk checked the damage type of the weapon instead of the player's subclass. So added stats to each element. Arc has plus 25 handling and plus 5 range. Solar plus 35 reload speed and plus 20 airborne effectiveness. And for Void we've got plus 20 stability and plus 10 aim assist. So even with these changes to the fundamentals, it felt like Borealis needed a more substantial change. So breaking a match shield now refills the magazine from reserves and allows your next 5 shots to deal bonus damage, and that is not deactivated by reloading. Well, the Jade Rabbit is a strong scout rifle, but its exotic perk was lackluster, so we've redesigned it to be more of a gameplay loop. So quickly landed 3 crits returns around to the magazine and increases the damage of your next body shot, stacks up to 3 increased damage body shots, and resets if you reload. So that's really, really interesting. Well, then we've got the nerfs to exotics. So first of all, we've got Witherhoard. Witherhoard is extremely strong in both PvE and PvP, dealing high damage quickly for an extended duration. We aren't making change to direct hits. We're leaving the damage and ammo capacity alone, but since the weapon in its current iteration is too strong in PvE, Not to mention, the Taken Portal is difficult to deal with in PvP. Now we've made the following change, so reduce the Taken Portal duration from 7.5 seconds to 4.5 seconds. Regarding Divinity, this is a must-have weapon in endgame PvE. That said, the combination of the strongest weaken effect and the cage making critical hits trivial and intrinsic overload being too strong, as is evidence in looking at how the weapon is used in instances like raids, now it's time for a change. So we looked at several options, including making the weapon harder to use or reducing its uptime by bringing its ammo down, but ultimately felt that its identity is all about making damage phases more enjoyable. Cage uptime remains the same, but we brought the weaken strength down to match other standard weakens in game. It's also important to call out that you can still apply a 30% weaken debuff with the cage by combining Divinity with Tether or Tractor Cannon. So, Bungie say they've reduced the Divinity's weaken from 30% to 15%, but it still self-buffs to 30%. Next up we got Arbalest. So Arbalest missed out on the body damage reduction of Laurent's Driver received, making it too easy to get one-hit shots in PvP, while also not requiring enough precision in PvE, so reduce the body damage shot to match Laurent's Driver. Next up we got Galahorns. This one's quite sad. Galahorn is the highest DPS rocket launcher and a great support weapon for legendary rocket launchers, so we picked one of those two roles and opted to lean into its support power, so that reduced the primary rocket's impact and detonation damage by 25%, and Wolfpack rounds are unaffected, and that brings it into the desired band, without nerfing it past other rocket launchers. Well, Forerunner received an unintended and relatively small damage buff in Season 18's balance update that made it a little bit too easy to use, so after the change, all it took for a final blow was 1 crit and 3 body shots, or 5 body shots in PvP. So here is what we've changed for Season 19. Reduce Forerunner base damage from 40 to 37, and crit damage from 72 to 67. Well, next up, we've got the buffs. So we track exotic weapon popularity when deciding what exotic weapons to buff by looking at how many active players own a weapon and how much they use it in-game. Typically, we choose from the 20 or so least popular weapons for a potential buff, either directly or via Catalyst Addition. In this case, we've adjusted some that have languished for years and other we simply felt strongly about. We have more of these type changes coming up in Lightfall, although we are going to share those in a later update. With the addition of Full Auto setting, we're replacing the Full Auto trigger system perk on each exotic that had it. So for example, No Time to Explain, replaced with Feeding Frenzy, Traveller's Chosen, the Catalyst perk replaced with Surplus, and it still has Osmosis, and Vigilance Wing, Catalyst perk replaced with Ensemble. We fixed an issue where crits from Dead Man's Tale were landing inconsistently depending on whether your aim was above or below the target. Also made some small changes to base damage, which will apply to all 120 RPM scout rifles. Now prefers critical hits over body hits and hipfire if both types of targets are inside the precision aim cone, and increase the body damage shot from 46 to 54, and reduce the crit damage from 81 to 80. We've also been looking at a way to help Darcy players. We know many Guardians would like it to move into the energy slot, but there's plenty of competition for sniper rifles there, even exotics. With the below change, it's a more interesting choice in the heavy slot, so it now applies Jolt when damaging targets affected by personal assistant, and increase the base airborne effectiveness to 80. Wishender always had a hidden damage bonus versus targets affected by Witherhorde due to its identity as a Taken Hunter's weapon, so increased bonus versus Witherhorde blighted targets from 10% to 25%. And while we don't want these special ammo snipers to be perfectly accurate from the air without significant investment, we don't want the same concerns with the heavy ammo counterpart, and that is where this Whisper of the Worm change comes in, to increase the base airborne effectiveness to 80. And next up we got the Prospector. That is a surprisingly high burst damage, but ultimately doesn't excel at ad clear or DPS for it to have a secure place. With the below change, it is substantially more effective at ad clear, although we'll continue to monitor when it's live in-game. So added chain reaction to the intrinsic perk. Well, the Fourth Horseman has some niche uses, but ultimately suffers from extremely hard to control recoil, which we have pulled back. So decrease the recoil by 50%. And then Forerunner is a fun weapon in PvE, but it's never been a top pick. Changes to the weapon and its grenade should make it a lot more viable. So increase the crit damage by 30% and the rock's damage by 60% in PvE, and reduce the ammo cost to activate the rock from 6 to 4, and increase the damage at the outer edge of the rock's damage radius from 0% to 20%. Well, Merciless is extraordinarily strong when ramped up, but it's hard to keep it in that state. Merciless decreased charge time now resets on a 5-second timer, and this time it is refreshed when you land hits. Rat King is also a lot of fun to use, but the allowed distance from allies feels a little bit too strict as it stands, so radius required to activate its perk increased from 15 to 20 meters. And that is a really exciting change. Rat King is one of my favourite weapons. And then next up we got the Legend of Acreus, has some movement penalties to make it feel weightier. We think the feel of the weapon does that sufficiently though, so this is what Acreus users can look forward to: reduce the movement penalties. And then Bastion's Season 14 nerf was a little bit more than it was needed, so we have halved it and reduced the spread angle by 6%. Quicksilver Storm's grenade intentionally shipped on the weak side. Wanted to see what the uptime of grenades was like in the wild rather than shipping them too strong. We believe that it's safe to increase the damage and the radius a fair bit. Also fixed a bug with the rockets. They weren't intended to be arc, and this bug unchanged would interfere with the catalyst coming in Lightfall. So increase PvP maximum grenade damage from 80 to 120, and increase the explosion radius from 3 meters to 4 meters, and switch the rocket damage from arc to kinetic. Cold Heart's Arc 3.0 rework wasn't generous enough with the ionic traces, so we've reduced the cooldown on ionic trace generation from 3.5 seconds to 2 seconds, now maxes out stability and reload speed when at maximum damage, and picked up an ionic trace. It now reduces the time it takes to get max damage. The Grand Overture's loop doesn't feel rewarding enough in its current form, so we've dramatically increased the reward. So increase the missile damage by 50%, that is absolutely huge. And then Xenophage only deals area of effect AoE damage currently, which causes some issues against enemies in PvE. We are not changing the overall weapon much, we're addressing that pesky PvE issue, and despite benefiting from solid ease of use, we felt that the damage could be a little bit higher. It now deals roughly half of its damage as impact damage, and the rest as detonation. The overall damage increased by 5%. When adjusting Divinity, we also looked at some bugs related to it, including Cloud Strike, and so the Lightning Storm will now correctly activate when hitting Divinity's cage. Well, next up we've got a few small armor changes. So some exotic armor pieces were part of combinations allowing extremely high damage output from melee attacks in PvE, so we brought a couple of those down versus altering enemies' health. So Worm God's Caress reduced the maximum damage multiplier from 7.5 to 3.5, and Winter's Guile reduced the maximum damage multiplier from 7.5 to 3.5. A note on Geofalcon's Halberg: we got a change coming in 6.3.0.1, and here is a sneak preview of that change. We believe will address the balance concerns in PvP, whilst maintaining a clear identity in the void space. So gain volatile rounds when exiting invisibility. When executing a finisher while invisible, this exotic now gives nearby allies a reserve overshield and gives the wearer a temporary bonus to weapon damage. So here's some things that players can look forward to in the future: a heavy weapon damage rebalance, tinkering with bringing some less effective options up while bringing some damage outliers down. And what is the Lightfall DPS meta? Well, that is going to be mysterious. A large rebalance of the airborne effectiveness stat, making primary ammo weapons significantly more accurate while airborne without any investment in the stat. Think Icarus level accuracy from before Season 17, and specifics are still in development. Some tweaks to the new shotgun reticles, and a pass adding the subclass 3.0 verbs to several exotic weapons, so that is very exciting, and there are currently 7. Well, let me know what you think about the new and the returning weapons, and also the changes to exotics. Loads of stuff there, and loads of stuff to be excited about in Season 19, and of course we get to dive into Season 19 on Tuesday, so really looking forward to that. Well, that is it for all the latest Destiny 2 news, and thank you so much for watching or listening. For more Destiny 2 content like this, hit that subscribe button down below and subscribe to This Week in Video Games. Or you can check me out on Twitter at TWIVG Podcast. If you enjoyed this video, found it useful, liking and sharing the video would really help me out. Otherwise, check out the videos on the channel. Thanks again. I'll see you soon.